I invited David, and he accepted, of course he's here, this evening to give us his take on the state of the UK housing market. With next week's Chancellor's statement and a general election just 6 months away, housing has got to be at the top of the promises that whoever wins might possibly deliver. Are the political parties taking the shortage of housing, affordable housing, seriously? Or are they just moving the numbers around and what's in the financial pot every time there's an issue in the housing market? Only 2 days ago, Ed Balls was talking about that magical 200,000 houses. Yet currently house building in this country is below the highest level of the 1920s, whilst the population has increased by over 50%. Well, we have a man with us tonight known for his straight talking and his robust engagement with both government and the housing industry. Please welcome our guest speaker, David Orr.
Thank you very much, Gerald. Finally, he's given me a brief. I quite often stand up in front of big groups of people like this and say something like, right, can I say what I like? Are there any journalists in the house? And then someone said to me this evening, well, it's all off the record. And I thought, yeah, I know what that means. But then I was much reassured by talking to people outside at the drinks reception before dinner when I discovered that it doesn't really matter what I say, because by repute, none of you will be in a position to remember any of it tomorrow morning. Is anyone tweeting? Nat Fed David. Okay? You're allowed to tweet if you say nice, positive things about me, all right? What a fantastic, wonderful speaker that guy is. Something like that. That'll do. I never really know why I accept an invitation to do after-dinner speeches of any kind, because I do stuff, I do content, I do housing, and people generally after dinner want jokes and wit. So do you want me to tell some jokes? Tough. No chance. But I will tell you my favourite I think this is my favourite story of the kind of random things that happen as you go about your business life. 2 or 3 years ago, the Federation, as many of you here will know, some of you have even been to it, runs quite a big conference every September in the ICC in Birmingham. And at that conference, I make a speech. That's what you're kind of required to do. So I get up there and I make my speech. And we try to create a bit of interest in what I'm going to say in the speech. I try not to do as Ed Miliband does, put out a press release that says what he's going to say and then forget to say it. But we try to create a bit of interest. And so on this occasion, we were getting some interest, and the Today programme wanted to cover it on the morning of my speech, and Sky News said, well, can we come and do a pre-record? So a Sky News team turned up 6:30 Thursday evening outside the ICC in Concert Square. Very, very grand public place. So we went out, stood in front of the ICC, and as is normally the case, there was a cameraman and a journalist. And there was one of my colleagues was with me also, and there were 4 of us standing there. And they set the camera up, and we were all ready to go. I was just about to start answering the questions, and the cameraman was just about to press the record button. And this young woman, late 20s, came running over, absolutely running over, and said, "Are you the news?" And the guys from Sky said, rather hesitantly, I thought, "Well, yes." And she went straight up to the camera, looked directly down the lens, and said, "Hi, Mum, the boob job worked. Look!" I just thought that was astonishing. So, are any of you going to behave like that? No, of course you're not. Gerald did say in passing that it would be good if I could say something about the general election. So that's what I'm going to do. We have to make this a housing election. We absolutely have to make it a housing election. And you know, I mean, you are all people who know about building, construction, housing. You know what the issues are and what the concerns are. But if you just take a step back for a moment and think about some of the numbers, London, let's start with London. London is projected to grow at the rate of an entire new London borough every 2.5 years. So where are we going to house all of those people? 250,000 people every 2.5 years as we career towards 10 million. Milton Keynes is 50 years old and recently passed 250,000. So we have to do a whole Milton Keynes in London every 2.5 years. And you know what the housing market is like in London. People can't afford to rent. Looking around the room, my guess is quite a lot of you here are in private rent, not very happy about it, spending far too much of your money on the rent, and not sure where your long-term home is going to be. Not sure whether you're going to be able to get onto the property market. We put out a little story today that got some coverage in some of the newspapers and some of the broadcast media about the speed at which your house is earning money if you happen to be an owner-occupier. In, I think, 31 of the 33 London boroughs, if you're a nurse, your house earns more every year than you do. There are 2 boroughs where if you're the Prime Minister, your house earns more than you do. 10, where if you're a solicitor on wages of 70 or 80,000 a year, your house earns more than you do. These are all indicators of a housing market that is not coping. And we have a housing crisis in this country. And as Gerald said, we are producing the smallest number of new homes consistently year after year since the 1920s. 1923, basically, was the last time that we produced as few homes as this outside of the period of the Second World War. And we know, don't we, about the famous baby boomer generation, of which I'm probably one. You know, we're the generation who are told that we've organized everything to suit ourselves. And we probably have. You know, we're smart. But the thing about the baby boomer generation, the thing that made it possible, I think, for that generation to do a lot of the things that it did, was that our parents had the foresight to understand that they needed to have an ambition to build a better world than the one that they were in. Now, some of that was made very obvious by the war. But they had a very clear ambition that they wanted the future world that their children were going to inherit to be better than the world that they were living in. And they thought that that was their job. They thought that that was the normal, ordinary thing to do. And they were building 300,000 homes a year, year after year after year after year. 300,000 homes a year. Well, here's the interesting thing. Remember, we're building 110, 120,000 homes a year at the moment. Do you know what? We've just had the biggest baby boom since the baby boomer generation. So the last baby boomers, their parents were creating 300,000 homes a year. We're producing 120,000 homes a year. Honestly, if we do not get our heads around this, there is a real and serious danger that we will not be able to house our children. Now, we don't think that's acceptable. We don't think it's good enough. And we don't think that it's good enough just to tell each other about it. We think that we have to be telling the world about this and making a real fuss about it and making it an absolutely integral part of the general election debate. Because if we don't, then we will be failing our children. And the good news is that there are so many good reasons for investing in building new homes. Not just the fact that that then creates the kind of warm, secure home that everyone needs to be able to face the world confidently. Not just that it adds to the kind of social resilience of the nation. But if you think about it, when you have the Director General of the CBI, the Governor of the Bank of England, the London Chambers of Commerce, all of them saying that the single biggest problem, the single biggest break on economic growth is our inability to provide good quality, affordable housing. If you are in the Cambridge area and those pharmaceutical industries that are growing, they cannot afford to pay the wages that they need to pay to attract the talent because house prices are too high. Renting is too difficult. And Cambridge, they're actually building new houses. There are actually proper plans for building. Thames Valley Corridor, London, other parts of the country. And we have major issues in different parts of the country about regeneration, about having the wrong kind of homes in the wrong places, at the wrong prices. And we absolutely have to understand that if our nation is to be economically successful, and if it's to be socially at peace with itself, we have to challenge and tackle this. And we have to build the homes. You know, I think from 1945 until the mid-1970s, governments genuinely had housing policies. Since then, we've not had housing policies, we've had tenure policies. People have worried about whether owning's better than renting, social housing or private renting, right to buy, all of these things. We've taken our eye off the ball and not built enough new homes. And the chickens are going to come home to roost, and we all know this. We all know it. But there's just a kind of feeling, well, nothing can be done about it, or that's just the way it is. Well, it's not just the way it is, and something can be done about it. And the something that can be done about it is pretty simple. We can build new homes, and we can invest in the ones that we've got, and we can improve their energy efficiency, and we can make them better places for people to live. I don't care about tenure. I've given up caring about tenure. I care about ensuring that as a nation, we are able to house everyone adequately, and we are in severe danger of not being able to do that. This is where you come in. Because if we are going to make this case, then it is absolutely essential that you, the people who know and understand and write about housing, the built environment, building, architecture, all of these things, you're all here. You all have a voice that no one else really has. I asked Gerald earlier what the combined circulation of every magazine here is. And actually, when you think about not the print, but the digital distribution now of all the words that you all write, you have a reach that goes into millions. Well, you need to be using that to support the campaign. We have created, the Federation has been one of the leaders in creating an alliance of, well, it's about 90, 100 different organizations now, almost every housing organization that you can think of, behind, we're calling the alliance Homes for Britain. And it has a very, very simple, clear, straightforward message. It is saying to our politicians, if you want our vote next May, you have to commit to ending the housing crisis within a generation. You have to think long term. You have to think strategically. You have to stop the flurry, the flood of initiatives, one after another, none of which makes any difference, but all give the appearance of things being done. Well, how many initiatives have we had in the last 5 years, or since the economic crash? How many? I don't know. You know, the Homes and Communities Agency runs 45 different programs, and we're still bumping along at 120,000 new homes a year. It hasn't made the difference that it needs to make. We have, you know this, you need to say it, you need to write it down, we have loads of land. There is no land shortage in this country, none, zero. There's loads and loads of money out there if we can just get the right offer that unlocks it. What we really need is the political will, the kind of commitment that when governments say, we are going to do the Olympic Games, nothing gets in the way. When governments say we're going to do Crossrail, nothing gets in the way. When governments say we're going to build a new fourth bridge, nothing gets in the way. Well, we need to have exactly that same kind of approach. We need to be much bolder. We need to be much louder. We need to challenge some of the orthodox thinking, the thinking that says the biggest problem facing our country is immigration. No one can get a house in this country because of all the immigrants who come in. Well, we know that's rubbish. Actually, if you don't have a job, then our rules exclude you from getting social housing. You are not allowed even to be considered for social housing unless you've got proof of residence over a period of time if you're out of work. 90%, more than 90% of all new lettings go to white British people. There's noise out there that distracts from the truth. And I think that journalists have an absolutely critical role to play. You need to be part of the clamour. We're creating this huge campaign. I hope that you will not be able to go anywhere in the early part of next year without seeing Homes for Britain, without seeing some of the things that we're doing. We're talking with our colleagues in the Home Builders Federation about the possibility of every building site in the country having Homes for Britain stuff on it, every housing association having Homes for Britain, making it visible. We need to make the case. We need to make the case for building. We need to make the case for construction. We need to make the case for apprenticeships. We need to make the case for ensuring that as a nation, as a civilized, still wealthy nation, we are capable of housing all of our people. If we are going to do that, we will do it because the public makes a noise about it and the politicians believe they have to pay attention. And one of the ways in which that message gets to the public and they believe that they have a voice is by all of the things that you do, all of the things that you write. We need you to be part of this big campaign to get our politicians to create the environment that says, as a nation, we do believe that we need to house all of our people adequately. We do believe that we should be constructing a future for our children that is as good or better than the present that we inhabit. We have to get people engaged in this. And that's why your work is so important. We cannot make the noise without the support of the people who have the means of telling the stories and getting the messages out there. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am a big fan of celebrations. I think it's great when industries and groups of people have the opportunity from time to time to get together and celebrate and be pleased about the achievements that you've made. Award ceremonies are a really good opportunity to say you did a great job. Next year, when you have this, whoever is standing here, I hope when they say in their remarks, you have an absolutely critical role to play, they're also saying, and do you know what? The work that you did meant that the 2015 general election became a housing election. Thank you very much.